Okay, cool. Yeah. Still going, yeah? Check, 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 check. Yeah, I just wanted to make double sure. But yeah, welcome to season 3, episode something of the Decompression Chamber. I've recorded so many of these since I actually made one that it's kind of all losing track to me. But yeah, our opening quote, I've quoted this before. I don't even know whether it's this season or previous season, but it's a Leonardo da Vinci quote, and it goes like this: "Love shows itself more in adversity than in prosperity, as light does, which shines most where the place is darkest." Roll the intro.
Wanted to meet and my steamer is broke. Fuck the oblique turn peak of the soul. Peace never know what's about to occur, but my zen getting rolled at the turn of your words. Wanted to meet and my steamer is broke. Fuck the oblique turn peak of the soul. Peace never know what's about to occur, but my zen getting rolled at the some little words. Or margin hot stop and duck knock and rust stopping for cigarettes. In it says smoke, out it says no. Cloud of the road that I play, so I know by their intimate business.
Yeah, so I mean, that's real, really. That's it, is that it's easy to be a good person. It's easy to be loving. It's easy to be supportive when things are easy, when things are good, you know? Well, maybe not easy, but it's less difficult, obviously. That's what easy means. But, like, maybe to me it's less, not important, but perhaps it's less kind of telling or less testing. Whereas when things are difficult and when things are not ideal, you know, those acts of courage, those acts of care, those acts of love, they become that much more substantial. They become that much more meaningful. Yeah, just noticing some flickering, deciding whether I can be asked to restart this whole thing or whether you're just gonna deal with the flickering. I think it's coming from the fairy lights. Anyway, yeah, it's good to be doing one of these. So much has happened since I last released one of these videos. You know, finished planning and shooting Slapnuts, which is going to be my grad film, you know, my final year project. Had an awesome Easter holiday, spent some time with my Spanish family who'd come over, and went to Athens with my immediate family, and that was like one of the best away trips I've ever had. Hopefully I can throw in a couple of clips, including getting a cheeky podcast segment with Ped at the Parthenon, which is sick. Yeah, that was real. And yeah, woven within all of that, a list of experiences and situations and fun things that I wouldn't hesitate to get into, but I would hesitate to get into, you know. Some things that, yeah, many things that I'm just immensely grateful for in every way. And it hasn't all been easy. It hasn't all been good. But overall, it's been brilliant. It's been amazing, you know. I've had some difficult times. The Friday before, so my film started shooting Tuesday the 28th of March. Damn, we're nearly a month past that now. It's crazy to think about. Nevertheless, yeah, on that date, that was a Tuesday. So the Friday before then, I had a complete, you know, mental breakdown. Like, I had a panic attack, and like I was crying, and no matter what, I felt inconsolable, you know. And I was crying and weeping and complaining about life and feeling bad about myself and all of this stuff. And it all came from a very real place. But I recognize now that it was to do with a build-up of tension and stress to do with filmmaking, you know. At the end of the day, I always feel like I'm doing something wrong. I always feel like I'm letting people down. I always feel like whatever I'm doing is about to be a disaster. And when you are that emotionally, financially, and, you know, energy invested in something, it can just take you to breaking point, you know. And I was at this breaking point. I felt completely, you know, the next day and a half, I felt completely emotionally shattered, where I just felt fragile and vulnerable, and like a balloon in a library full of cactuses, like every library garden. You get what I mean? Yeah, I just felt like anything I did, I would burst. I would like collapse, and I was so glad throughout all of that to have such a brilliant and amazing group of people around me. You know, people watch and know who they are. You know if it's you, because I have some people that have been there for me in the times where I've most needed it. You know, people that really, really show how they care. You know, and it's a reassuring thing being shown love when when maybe you feel like you don't deserve it, or maybe when you feel like you're not in a place where you can return it, even where everything feels like it's all kind of pressing down on you, and you can't make way left or right or up and down. Nothing makes sense, but that to me does make sense. The feeling of connection of somebody else reaching out and showing support and love. To be honest, there's nothing that makes more sense to me. And so yeah, I was so lucky to get to experience that and go through that. Again, it was extremely unpleasant, and I would never recommend it to anyone. I felt horrible the whole time, and yet that the joy and the fun and the fulfillment of the filming after, I don't think you can have one without the other. You can't have the yin without the yang. I put my heart and soul into every project, or at least a piece of my heart and soul into every project I make, and I always say that because it's true, and I always say that because if I didn't do that, it wouldn't be right. I wouldn't be doing my job best as director. Like, I want to be invested. I want to be pushing all my chips into this, and sometimes that comes at a little bit of a personal cost, mental health wise or mental capacity wise, and that's every single time I go through it. It forces me. It's a test of faith in a sense. It's a test of faith because it makes me question: is this what I really want? Is this who I want to be? Is this the life that I've chosen? To go through such an intense, difficult experience. And if anything, this experience showed me, again, it reaffirmed everything that previous projects always do, which is, if I am taken to this breaking point, if I am this emotionally kind of charged, not only does this mean that I care so much, but it also means that if I'm able to take myself to the absolute breaking point of what I'm mentally capable of doing, and I still want to get up and do it, and I still want to apply myself, and I still want to work hard for it, and I wake up early and work till late, and I still want to be there, I've got a smile on my face as that's happening, and I get this giddy sense of joy as I'm seeing the idea that I kind of created out of my brain come to fruition, all of these things, they're part of it. They're like, it's a journey, man. It's a fucking wild roller coaster, and anybody who is close to someone who's a filmmaker or is part of the filmmaking community, any of that, if you've witnessed it, I'm not going to act like we're special or above anyone else, but it is unique. It is fucking weird. This combination, particularly in my university experience, of like social, creative, and laborative kind of processes, like all of them combine in such a volatile and interesting way. And when it goes poorly, it goes fucking poorly. But when it goes well, like I feel like it did on my shoot, is tremendous. I loved it every single moment. I wake up and we film a scene, and then we're talking about the next shots, and we're coming together and we're coming with creative decisions, and I'm working with actors and talking to them about characters and the story. Like that's the shit that I live for. That's why I'm here. That's why I do what I do. It is part of who I am. And I think that's another part that makes the stakes feel so high, is that I'm not just a filmmaker as a hobby. I'm not just a filmmaker even in the sense of like being a professional filmmaker. I could just be a professional, but I'm not just a professional filmmaker. It's part of my identity. It's part of my soul. It's like, when I think of myself and who I am, one of the things that comes up is filmmaker, and I feel like that's going to be the case until I'm dead. In whatever way that takes place in my life, I will be and am a filmmaker, put down the subtitle of my name or whatever. But yeah, so it was fucking intense, mind you. I always say this, and I've got to give credit to everybody, every single member of the crew. Genuinely, this isn't like one of those kind of like placating things. Everybody was a huge part of a contribution to the project, because it was ambitious. It was bigger than anything I've ever done before. I think it was, in terms of scale, the biggest project out of the students in my year this year. Like, well, that's debatable, but in any case, I assistant directed, which is like scheduling and organization and helping the director in every way possible for my housemate and good friend Sam's short film. Love you, Sam, great filmmaker. He's gonna go and do big things. But I AD'd his film, and that required scheduling and organizing 2 actors over 2 shooting days, 2 shooting locations, like one each day, getting everybody in their kit there, and that fucking stressed the shit out of me. I thought that took me to the brink. Previous to the breakdown I was describing earlier, I thought that was my limit, and I was like, oh, oof. And then, you know, I realized that Harvey, beautiful soul, excellent filmmaker, great man, who was the assistant director for Slapnuts, the film I directed and produced, that was a project with 3 main cast, 2 additional actors over 4 shooting days with like 13 or something locations, and it was organized well to a T, you know. And Jack, who's my cinematographer, who's also a brilliant guy, he was great to work with, and our sense of collaboration, and when me and him and Harv would get together and make these choices and talk about, you know, how's this going to work and how do we fit this into the shoot, like, that's what I do it for, man. That's why I do it. There's no time in my life where I feel more focused, more engaged, and more kind of precise, you know. I feel like all those worldly distractions, you know, these worries that enter my head, nothing else matters. I'm just Mario, the director, you know. Nothing else matters, and that's the shit I live for, man. That's what I'm here for. Is I'm trying to do stuff that makes me 100% zoned in and focused on what I'm doing, you know. That's why I like, you know, practicing guitar and going to dance classes and playing basketball or going on a run, or like, you know, cracking jokes with my mates or any of that shit. It's just because when I'm doing that and I'm not thinking about anything else, I feel connected. I feel like somewhat grounded in my own life in a way that sometimes I don't, you know. Like, sometimes the last couple of days, it's been a bit of a difficult time. I don't know, I felt a little bit hollow, I'd say, like vacant. Not like this deep sense of sadness, like real sense of bad, just like I was kind of a little bit mentally in my own bubble. And like when I'd replied to someone in a conversation, it didn't really feel like I was there, or when I was trying to like share some sort of sense of emotion with somebody, it felt like they were harder to reach, or like I was finding it harder to reach them, you know. And these things happen. Everything has its kind of ups and downs, and I'm lucky enough that whenever I experience such a period of joy and happiness, I forget that naturally things are going to swing downwards again. And it's unfortunate that when the downward swings, a lot of times how this manifests itself is my brain supplying my conscious with all the things I dislike about myself, all the things I'm insecure about, all those doubts that I have rise to the surface. They kind of bubble up unnecessarily, and it's difficult. It's difficult to deal with, because I, like, in my consciousness, I know that these aren't good thoughts. I know that these aren't good for me, and yet sometimes it feels like fighting the tide. You know, it feels like I can't win against those thoughts. It feels like they overwhelm me, like white blood cells attacking a target. Like they just kind of like all surround and then like trap any escape, you know. Because at the end of the day, I can go different places, I can do different things, but I'm always here with me, you know, always stuck with this guy, you know. And so that's just something I've got to work on. That's something I try and be conscious of, and essentially I try and give myself the time to process these thoughts and think about how true they really are, or where they're coming from, or what they're about, or all of that kind of stuff. Because, you know, I thought about this on the return from Athens. The great insecurity for me is I had a dream once, not Martin Luther King type, but I had a dream once, and it was, so every summer I go away to Spain for like 4 weeks, because I'm very lucky to be able to do that. But I had one dream in my adolescence, and I don't know whether this was a manifestation of this insecurity or whether it was the birthplace of this insecurity, but I remember I had a dream that I came back from that 4-week period, and it wasn't like people disliked that I was back. People just didn't care. They just didn't notice. All the people that I hoped would be excited to see me on return, all the things that I thought I'd be excited to do, just weren't there. And that's just something I'm always worried about, I guess. Even if it's not like conscious, even if I don't think I'm worrying about it, I feel it, you know? Like, and despite the fact that there were so many people that were like, when I was away, I was so eager to see again, I had this sense of tension, this sense of fear that, like, for some reason, like, when I'd be back, they wouldn't want to see me. And it's not even based in reality, it's not, but it's just like, that's just something I'm insecure about, you know, and that's something I've got to deal with. And one of the things I'm scared of in life is, so I don't really like making my problems other people's problems. I don't like feeling like a burden, you know, which is a bit of a dangerous task, because sometimes you will become more of a burden if you don't reach out for help, and if you don't make your problem other people's problems in some way. You know, if you're, I don't know, if you're going through a tough time and you don't tell anyone, and then that builds into a kind of a situation where you really, really need help, you know, you've become more of a burden than maybe you wanted to be. And I feel like I've set up the premise wrong. I'm not saying that getting help from people makes you a burden. I'm saying that's how it makes me feel, you know. And even asking for help sometimes is difficult, you know. This emotional breakdown that I was describing before my shoot, it was pointed out to me, or like I was made aware that things weren't doing well. Ah, shit, my laundry. It is hanging right now, and it is raining outside. Fuck. Be back. What was I talking about? So I was talking about insecurities, being a burden, no one to help. Yeah. So the evening where I had an emotional breakdown, panic attack variety, that evening it was pointed out to me that I wasn't doing well, and I was aware of it, but I was trying to keep a hold on it because I don't like showing emotional vulnerability, and particularly in the form of like crying and being sad and feeling anxious and all of that kind of stuff, which is difficult because I feel a lot of that a lot of the time. But it was pointed out to me, and then I felt this build up of emotion, and my response wasn't to like, you know, seek help, even though there were people there trying to help me. My first response was run out of the room, be by myself. I thought that would help, and it really didn't. And I was just pacing, I was just like thinking and pacing and trying to listen to music or calm myself down, do breathing exercises, and nothing helped, you know. And then someone walked outside and gave me a hug, and I instantly burst into tears, like sobbing, deep racked tears, you know. And sometimes you need a little bit of that, a bit of catharsis. But what I guess I'm trying to say is that it's okay to need help sometimes. It's okay to fall apart. It's okay to be vulnerable. As long as you are able to pick yourself up, or maybe have people help you pick yourself back up, dust yourself off and keep marching into the fray, you know. It's always a journey that I felt like I've had to make alone, but I've never had to make it alone, in the sense that I'm the one that's doing all the legwork, but there's always people who have been by my side for it, you know. And for that I'll always be grateful, always. More than you'll ever know. And so that's why I brought up that quote at the start, because, you know, there are people that have supported me in times where it's been very difficult, and vice versa. There are people that I always support just because they're them, you know, even if it's not convenient to me, even if it's not easy for me, I'll do it because I know that it's right, and because I know that they've done the same for me, and because I just want people in my life to feel supported and valued and all that stuff, because that's the way I feel as well, you know. All of us have that need. And yeah, man, I feel like I'd have to do a whole episode just talking about Greece, because genuinely it is one of the most stunning places ever. Like, particularly, well, I only went to Athens, so I can't speak for all of Greece, but genuinely amazing. Like, beautiful time of year, perfect weather, collection of like historical sites and cultural stuff, and, you know, just fun places to be, and iced coffees outside with the family, and playing Catan in the evenings, and all of that. Like, I always just consider myself as grateful as possible, because I just have have so many blessings in life, you know. I have so much to be grateful for. I have so many things that I consider myself lucky to have in my life, and so many people I find myself lucky to have. And so, to me, I think the only way I can really cash in on this gratitude, really pay back, is just enjoy it to the fullest. Live life fruitfully and joyously. You know, I always try and express as much as possible to the people in my life how much I adore them, how much I value them, how much joy they bring me, because they do. Like, because they improve my life so much, and I hope to improve theirs in one way or another. And it's funny, because so much of my life I'm thinking about stuff that's not in the now. But when I sit here just now, just talking to you, talking to me, I just think life's good. I think hardship will come, but that's fine, you know. People will come and go, and that's life. But one thing I've got sure is that as long as the way I see the world is the way I see things, I'm always going to be pursuing my own happiness. I'm always going to be pursuing a good life, and what that means is up to me to decide. You know, there's a lot of wisdom out there. There's a lot of experiences that have educated me. There's a lot of people that have influenced my perspective, and I'm lucky enough to have the privilege to just synthesize this and create whatever I want out of my life. It's a beautiful adventure, and I'm excited where it's going to go for all of us. Peace.
For the oblique term, peak of the soul. Peace never know what's about to recover. My zen getting rolled at the turn of your words.
What is on my head, wish it that, what can waste, what whisk up the eggplant pie, even salad dragon. Whole country can't rest on a wing since then, never seen